So hi everyone, my name is Tao and I work at Playcrafting. I'm the person who sends out all the emails and stuff. So that's me behind the emails. So a little bit about Playcrafting. So we are a gaming startup. We are based in New York and we actually started as a meetup group in about like 12 years ago. And like about like 5 years ago, like we formalized, and then, like actually like function as an actual company. So we do a lot of like different things, but like the biggest, like one of the biggest, like offering that what we do is, like education courses like this. So like that's what we're here for. And since like 5 years ago, like we trained like more than, I would say like 200 developers like through our courses. And I think like, like the great thing about like the courses that like Playcrafting offer is, like we work directly with, like professional like game developer like Willem. So, like you actually do get, like a lot of like hands-on training, like things that, like you actually face, like as you like work on your project. So a lot of like those developers, like, like some people, like now like gone on like, like work at different studio, or like some people just, like straight up just like start doing their own things. So besides, like the education part, we also host a lot of events. We do, like multiple events in the expo like throughout the years, sometime in New York, sometime in Boston, like sometime in like San Francisco. For obvious reason, we haven't done that this year at all. But we just wrap up, like the biggest event of the year, Playing YC in August. And if you missed that event, we did have like a lot of like great talks and panels, so like you can find all of that on our YouTube channel. And that is that about Playcrafting. If you have any question about like what we do, or like how to get involved, like that kind of stuff, like do feel free to like like send me an email. There will be an email like share in the slide. But I will stop now and let Willem take over.
Hi guys. So thank you so much, Tao, for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to. Oh, you have to give me permission to share.
Okay.
How
do I do that?
Yes. So on the share screen button in the bottom middle, there's going to be a little like arrow that gives you more options.
Oh, okay, got it.
You should just be able to hit, I think, multiple people, the like multi-share button. And if you click that, I think I should be able to share.
Got it. I think you should be able to do that right now.
Let me try. Yes. Awesome. Okay. So we're back. Hello, everybody. So my name is Willem Delventhal. Thank you for the intro, Tao. I am going to be your instructor for the multiplayer game bootcamp. This is actually the inaugural version of this class. We haven't run it before, but it came about because we were trying to think of what's the next step after our intro Unity class. We've run that so many times. It's always successful and it's always fun. But yeah, we wanted something that was fresh after that. And we were talking through what that might mean. And multiplayer is one of those things that people get really interested and excited about, and is also really confusing to make. So it felt like the natural selection for what we were going to do. Now, I'm just going to warn everybody. I'm going to pull up the chat here somehow. I'm just going to warn everybody that I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to expect you to text some messages to the chat here, to send some messages to the chat as I'm talking. So warm up your fingers, because I expect everybody to participate, please. Otherwise, this is super boring for everybody. So let's try to make it awesome. Okay. So we talked about Playcrafting. Playcrafting is rad. I've been teaching with them for a couple of years now. I've met Dan Bushko a number of times. He's the CEO, and he's a really great dude. The community in general is wonderful. They support a lot of developers. They do a lot of events to help you find an audience, to help you test your games, and to help you learn how to build games. So I have always felt quite warmly embraced by this community. They're pretty awesome. All right, so my name's Willem. That's my cat. His name's Fez. My most, maybe not quite my most recent, but one of my big ventures is actually a startup that specifically makes video games for cats that I started 2.5 years ago, called Mew and Me. It was made for Fez. He never played. About 50% of cats will play, and of course he was the ones who didn't, because that's just how cats roll. I'm now in the process of selling that company, and I'm moving on to starting a more traditional indie game studio. And yeah, I've got a little bit of experience here for you to look at. Basically, I've been building games pretty much forever. I sort of accidentally sold a game when I was 15, and that started my cycle of, I really like making games, and I've been doing it for my whole life. These are some of my games. My most long-standing professional experience was at Lumosity, which is the brain training game company. You can see in the bottom right there, is a game called Feel the Beat. That was probably my favorite. It became Lumosity's most controversial game. It was like the ratings were all either a 1 or a 5. Very interesting metrics. And a couple of other games there. The one on the bottom left there is that game that I accidentally sold when I was really young. I did all those graphics, baby, built in Flash ActionScript 2. You can see the beautiful indie feel. Okay, so let's talk about the course now and why I think you should take it. Basically, this is going to help take you to the next level as a C# game developer. To be very clear, this is not an introductory course. If you have no experience in C# or in Unity, this is not the course that you should be taking. However, if you're at like a 2, 3, 4 out of 10 in your game development and C# programming experience, I think you're at about the right place. It's going to take you to that next step. It's going to teach you some of the higher level elements in Unity and in C#. And it's going to show you how to make a multiplayer game, which is like a whole headache, and it's kind of hard to understand how to make it work. So you're looking at this if you want the next step in game development, and you're looking at this if you want to learn how to do multiplayer. As I said, I do not think that this is a game for somebody who has no experience whatsoever. So if you are looking to get into the game industry and have not played with Unity and have not played with C#, I recommend that you take our Intro Unity course. We'll be running another one in a couple of months. So that's what I'll say to you if you haven't done anything. You should be able to do basic C# programming already. You should have at least a basic understanding of the Unity IDE, and you should have completed at least some game. Even if it's not released, the Roll-a-Ball tutorial that Unity puts together is a perfect example. It's a very, very simple game. You can do that tutorial in a couple of hours, but if you haven't at least completed a game up to that level, I think that you're gonna fall behind in this course. And also make sure you've got a computer that can run Unity. That's fairly self-explanatory, but it'll be pretty hard to take the course if not. Okay, so the course itself, the overview here, we are going to build a 2D multiplayer turn-based strategy. If you saw the information about this course earlier when we talked about doing a brawler game, a fighting game similar to Smash Bros, we decided that was too complicated for a 4-week course, and instead we did a turn-based strategy game. And that's because of the simple mechanics of a multiplayer game. The way that multiplayer generally works is that you have a server and a client. The client is actually who is playing the game, the actual piece of code that's running the game on the user's computer or device. And then the server is a computer somewhere that's handling the interaction between them. And every time you send a piece of information between that server and the game, the client, you get more complexity. So for a turn-based game, you've only got to send one, what happened on that turn, versus a game that's real-time, like a fighting game, you're going to be sending constant input back and forth. And it just felt like that was too complicated to expect of people in a month. So we're going to make a turn-based strategy game. We are going to do a networked game. So you're going to be able to play your game online with other people, which is awesome. We're going to cover some intermediate C# Unity, and we're going to get a step-by-step breakdown of how to release your mobile game. Most likely you aren't going to release this after just a month, but I'm going to at least talk you through the process so that you can release it when you're ready. Course curriculum, we got it split up into 4 weeks here. We're taking you up to speed. So we will give you sort of a refresher on the Unity IDE and on C#. That's largely for people who are working in Unreal or something like that, or have programming experience but not Unity experience. We will give you a little bit of that intro just to make sure everybody is up to speed and ready to make awesome games. Week 2 is going to be game theory and architecture. Week 3, multiplayer. And then week 4, actually how to release a game. So let's go week by week. I've talked about this to some degree, but I want to make sure you guys understand what we're actually doing together. The week 1, like I said, is largely going to be just getting you up to speed. So we are going to have a little bit of an introductory period where we're revisiting the Unity IDE, we're revisiting C# fundamentals, but it will not go very in depth. So if you have no experience, like I said, I don't think it will be enough for you to keep up with the class. So make sure you have at least some experience coming into this. But we will do some coverage to make sure we've got everybody on the same page. We'll also be brainstorming. We're doing some ideation, which is one of my favorite parts of the game design process, to figure out what kind of turn-based strategy game you guys can all create and what you want to create. And we'll be doing some lessons on creating a game design doc, actually setting yourself up for success. And then we'll start building your game. Week 2 is going to be some game theory and architecture. We'll be talking more about what games are good and what games are bad, and what makes a good game fun. What are like the core fundamentals of a game? How do you design a game loop? All that good stuff. We will create a single player experience for your turn-based strategy. So that'll include some incredibly stupid AI. We're not going to get very complicated here, but you will be able to play the game by yourself. And while we do that simultaneously, we'll be setting up the game so that it can, so that we can set up multiplayer easily in the future. Then week 3, we'll actually be implementing that multiplayer. So we will learn to use a tool called Normcore, which I'm curious if anyone in the chat, if you've heard of Normcore before. But it is one of the most popular Unity multiplayer tools out there. It simplifies a lot of stuff for you, and it has a lot of really powerful tools. It's also incredibly cheap. They have a really, really generous free plan. So for any sort of prototype, until you have a significant, Photon is also a great option. Normcore is just what I settled on for this course. But yeah, so Normcore has a really generous free plan. So until you're really, until you have serious users, you're not going to have to worry about paying for it. And even when you are paying for it, it's pretty cheap. They set up the servers for you. They even set up regional servers for you out of the box. They have avatars. They even have chat, which I haven't experimented with and we won't cover in this course. They have literal voice chat. So you'll be able to continue to explore Normcore as well. We'll talk through client-server architecture. I already covered that today, gave you a little intro, so we won't talk too much about it. We'll also quickly talk about peer-to-peer, which is sort of the alternative to a client-server architecture. And we will implement multiplayer functionality into your games. So all of you should be able to actually have somebody else play your video game with you in week 3 or early week 4. Week 4 is mostly just going to be wrap-up. So we're going to finish an MVP version of your game, a minimum viable product, if you don't know that term. Basically just the smallest version of your game that you actually can play. And then we will learn how to release on the Google Play and App Store. Like I said, it's unlikely that I think any of you will be releasing by week 4. We totally can do that if you feel comfortable. But at the very least, I'm going to talk you through the steps so that you have them all ready for when you are actually ready to release.
And this is some details about the upcoming course. So the first day we start on November 10th, and then the course will go on until December 8th. And we will meet on Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And because everything is through Zoom, so after every class, you will get access to the video. I usually do that the morning after. You cannot download the video, but everything that Willem, from the class and from Willem, everything will be on. Everything will be shared after the class. And next slide. So the cost for this course is $1,000. We do have payment plans. The terms are pretty simple. So you basically, pay for half of it at the time you sign up, and then the second payment just due in November. And if you have any question, please do feel free about payment plans or anything. Do feel free to shoot me an email at that email address. If you want to take a look at the page of the course, do go to playcrafting.com/unity-201. And I think that now we can open up to Q&A.